Mookie,
Yeah.
what's up, bro? How you feeling?
What's up?
It's time to lock in, bro. We got facts about slavery that's not mentioned in school.
Yeah.
First of all, how y'all doing out
Man,
there?
you know I talk a lot on these subjects, man.
Yeah,
you
facts,
be knowing,
facts,
he be knowing
facts,
I talk a lot on these subjects, and he's steady.
Yeah, bro. Our last video, bro, we did on Thomas
Sowell.
Thomas Sowell was a great video, y'all. If y'all could tap into that, which that one's about again, bro? The current black culture.
Yes, Lord.
The current black culture, bro.
We need help.
Yeah. So this
We
one right
need
here is about slavery that's not mentioned in school,
Facts
bro.
about slavery.
So look, man, if y'all new to the channel, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe,
Yes,
bro.
sir.
Let's lock in. Mookie,
Yeah.
let's get into it, bro.
Black rednecks and white liberal.
So what's that's like the opposite, bro?
A white liberal is basically a white Democrat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
The instrumental use of the history of slavery today also underlies the claim that slavery grew out of racism. For most of its long history, which includes most of the history of the human race, slavery was largely not the enslavement of racially different people, for the simple reason that only in recent centuries has either the technology or the wealth existed to go to another continent to get slaves and transport them en masse across an ocean. People were enslaved because they were vulnerable, not because of how they looked.
Okay.
The peoples of the Balkans were enslaved by
That's deep.
Vulnerable, don't have any money.
Right.
You know, it makes me feel like basically people who were in the poverty of their day.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? The poverty of that day were the ones becoming slaves. You see what I'm saying?
So the important question is, bro, how hard was it to get by back then?
Oh, it was extremely hard. Because you got to remember, we don't have any of the luxuries we have today. Didn't
Facts.
exist back then. The way you lived was by building yourself a nice house, getting livestock, which means chickens, sheep, cows, and all of that takes maintenance, bro. You got to get up early in the morning and tend to those animals, tend to your land, because you got to realize your food, you got to grow your own food now.
Right.
Feel me? Not only do you got to tend to your livestock, you got to tend to your gardens and stuff like that. Everything was on you.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? And as I say, you didn't have any livestock. Now you got to go hunting.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Which, Lord have mercy, would make you appreciate your food so much better, because you can literally die trying to hunt some of these animals.
Right,
that you,
right.
They will turn on you and they will attack you back. You
Right.
feel what I'm saying? Wasn't no supermarket or anything like back then. You had to get all this stuff, and if you did get livestock, that cost money. You got to buy a cow from a person. You feel what I'm saying? You got to buy some chickens. You got to buy some sheeps. You buy some pigs and all of that type of stuff. You
Right.
feel what I'm saying? That costs money. So the way of living back then, they got, like how we say, get it out the mud. No, they really got it out the mud. They was in the mud getting it out the mud. You see what I'm saying?
So we phony with it for
no,
real.
what? Man, we soft as I don't know what compared to the people of those days. Man.
They was beasts.
Yes.
Straight
And
all
it was
kings
just-
and
yes,
queens.
all kings and queens. And it was just the way of life. If you wanted to live, you could not be lazy. You was up early in the morning. And this was every day.
Why it sound like this is the way how you really supposed to live?
I mean, it'll make you appreciate things more.
Way more.
It'll make you appreciate everything more.
That's dope.
fellow Europeans, as well as by the peoples of the Middle East, for at least 6 centuries before the first African was brought to the Western Hemisphere. Before the modern era, by and large, Europeans enslaved other Europeans. Asians enslaved other Asians.
Right.
Africans enslaved other Africans. And the indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere enslaved other indigenous peoples of the Western Hemisphere. Slavery was not based on race, much less on theories about race. Only relatively late in history did enslavement across racial lines occur on such a scale as to promote an ideology of racism that outlasted the institution of slavery itself. Wherever a separate people were enslaved, they were disdained or despised, whether they were different by country, religion, caste, race, or tribe. In East Africa, the Maasai were feared slave raiders, and other African tribes, either alone or in conjunction with Arabs, enslaved their more vulnerable neighbors. As late as 1891, it was reported that Manyuema slavers had demoralized surrounding tribes, destroying crops, and famine reigned everywhere. Even in the early 20th century, Abyssinians were still raiding other Africans and carrying off slaves. It was 1922 before the British had gained sufficient control in Tanganyika to stamp out slavery there. Arabs were the leading slave raiders in East Africa, ranging over an area larger than all of Europe. The total number of slaves exported from East Africa during the 19th century has been estimated to be at least 2 million. The form in which the story of slavery has reached most people today has been along the lines of the best-selling book and widely watched television miniseries Roots by Alex Haley. Challenged on the historical accuracy of Roots, Haley said, "I tried to give my people a myth to live by."
Wow.
This instrumental use of history, or purported history, is open to the same objections as other instrumental myth-making.
So the dude who made Roots, he went through it.
He didn't go through it. I think he did a lot of research. And like he said, he gave people a myth to live by. You know what I'm saying? Because like I said, people are not like I said, as the video stated, and I truly believe this, and it's facts behind this, because I don't like anything that doesn't have facts behind this.
Right.
Racists enslaved their own people. He just went back to when white people enslaved black people in the 1800s.
Right.
He didn't go further than that back, because slavery existed beyond that.
But the thing about it is, bro, I feel like he had to do that, though, because it's like me growing up, me thinking about slavery,
Right.
I'm automatically thinking like, yo, black people was enslaved to white people. Simple as that.
That's all we was taught.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, bro. So, I understand Main Man gave that myth, and I understand it was a point in time it was like that. I'm pretty sure it probably was a time that white people just felt like they can take over black people.
Right,
You feel me? I'm pretty sure it was a time like that. But what I'm basically saying is, the root of all that, bro, me and the understanding and all that, and black people just was slaving other black people also, kind of got my mind twisted, y'all. You feel me? It got me messed up.
Tough, man.
Yeah.
It's tough.
History is crazy, bro.
Despite the impression created by Roots, during the era of the massive slave trade from West Africa, a white man was more likely to catch malaria in Africa than to catch slaves himself.
Facts.
The average life expectancy of a white man in the interior of sub-Saharan Africa at that time was less than 1 year. By and large, men from Europe or the Western Hemisphere came to the coasts of Africa, bought their slaves, and left as soon as possible. Even so, the death rates among the white crews of the ships carrying slaves to the Western Hemisphere were as high as the death rates among the slaves themselves.
Facts.
It was only much
Them slaves was killing.
No. They couldn't handle the environment that
Right.
the slaves came through. So they was dying just as much as the slaves was dying, trying to transport these people from the African coast
Right.
back to North America. So they was dropping too.
Oh, man.
later, after quinine and other medical measures enabled Europeans to survive where there were tropical diseases, was it possible for them to invade Africa in force and establish empires there. But by then, the Atlantic slave trade had already...
They travel in force and try to take over a whole empire.
Rewind the last 10 seconds.
to survive where there were tropical diseases, was it possible for them to invade Africa in force and establish empires there?
Force. I thought
But by then, the Atlantic slave trade had already been ended. During the era of that trade, Africa was largely ruled by Africans, who established the conditions under which slave sales took place. The crew of a slave ship was in no position to defy African rulers and their armies by going out across the land and capturing people willy-nilly. The stronger African peoples captured and enslaved the weaker peoples. The same pattern found over the centuries in Europe, Asia, the Western Hemisphere, and Polynesia. In Nyasaland, the Ngoni and Yao swaggered over and terrorized other tribes. In Uganda, the Baganda made life miserable for their neighbors. And the Nyoro and Hima of Anko enslaved Toro women and children. The Tutsi dominated the Hutu in Rwanda. The Maasai lorded it over the Kikuyu and Kamba. And the latter, in turn, held the Indorobo in a kind of serfdom. It was precisely the fact that Europeans...
Crazy. What he just mentioned, those were all black tribes.
Yeah, I know.
Black tribes,
There was
bro.
black tribes trying to slave.
Slave other black tribes. And they did it for profit.
Right.
They did it for profit.
So
when the white man came, the white man, I think, gave them guns and
Right.
other, like I think mirrors and stuff like that they've just never seen. And all type of stuff that was just available in that country. You know what I'm saying?
Bro, it's so crazy.
But it's just no point, bro. These are human lives y'all doing. And they did that in if you ever seen the movie Apocalypto, Mel Gibson directed it. It's basically what they're talking about now.
Right.
This was indigenous tribes, the people we call Mexicans and Hispanics and all that today.
Right.
I mean, they were Aztec. Their roots come from ancient Aztec society.
Okay.
So and they did the same thing there too.
All right, bro.
except for the Portuguese, seldom participated in the raids that captured and enslaved Africans that enabled most people in Europe and the Americas to remain oblivious to the traumatic experience that this was, with some Africans committing suicide to avoid capture and wives being whipped as they tried to cling to their husbands or children. Historian David Breon Davis pointed out that Europeans had little contact with the actual process of enslavement, and that as late as 1721, the Royal African Company asked its agents to investigate the modes of enslavement in the interior. Europeans typically saw only the end results, enslaved people being offered for sale on the coast. It was much the same story in the Ottoman Empire, where those who bought slaves had no idea what these slaves had been through before. The unique position of the Western world in the history, and especially the destruction of slavery, need not imply that there was unanimity within the West on this institution. In addition to whites who defended the enslavement of Africans on racial grounds, or who opposed general emancipation on social grounds, there were many whites, and even blacks, who defended slavery as a matter of self-interest as slave owners. Although most black owners of slaves in the United States were only nominal owners of members of their own families, there were thousands of other blacks in the antebellum South who were commercial slave owners, just like their white counterparts. An estimated 1/3 of the free persons of color in New Orleans were slave owners, and thousands of these slave owners volunteered to fight for the Confederacy during the Civil War. Black slave owners were even more common in the Caribbean.
What's up, yo?
They talk about black slave owners that were more willing to fight for the Confederate. You know, the Confederate is the South, the ones that wanted to keep slavery going.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why I love y'all in the comment section, because from what I've studied and the information I received wasn't too accurate.
Right.
It was said that the reason that, you know, the North and the South went to war was because the North was paying all the taxes.
Right.
And the South wasn't paying nothing.
Right.
And when when they went to the South, like, hey, y'all gonna start kicking out
Yeah,
some money.
gonna start paying
Oh
taxes,
yeah.
facts.
They like, no, we ain't giving y'all nothing. Okay. And then they abolished slavery and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? So it tripped me out that as a black slave owner, you would be willing to fight to keep slavery going instead of watching basically the destruction of your own people.
Right.
And, you know, watching the destruction of your own people instead of just wanting to get rid of it. That's why, like, when I see black conservatives and stuff like that, which is like black Republicans, it tripped me out because y'all seem like y'all want to have a blind eye to what's really going on.
Right.
The Democrats and Republicans, they're trash on both sides. I'm sorry. I hate politics.
Right.
I really hate politics. For me, we all need Jesus. But that's just
That's what they
I
be saying in
that's
the
what I
comment section.
think. That's what I think. We all need Jesus. Because I hate politics. And when I see, you know, these black people saying little dumb stuff like racism doesn't exist, and you know, like Candace Owens is another guy. His name is Brandon Tatum, and another guy named Jesse. I couldn't forget his last name. These are the type of people that go at it with people like Umar Johnson.
Yeah.
And I think he's silly too.
Right.
I'm sorry, because all that black people are the most powerful race, and that's just stupid. We all need each other, man.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? There is no one race above the other. We all need each other.
And that just makes sense.
So, you know, but when I hear people say little dumb stuff like slavery doesn't exist, or they trying to, with this real black empowerment, and all, like, no, man, I dismiss all of that stuff.
Right.
You feel what I'm saying? Because racism definitely exists, but it doesn't just exist in black people.
Right.
It exists in all races. You feel what I'm saying? More than you think, because I know just as many racist black people as I do white people, if not more.
That's a fact. That's a fact.
But you know what I'm saying? It just tripped me out that I'm of your color and I see what you're going through, and I feel like, well, that's just his situation.
Right.
Without actually helping
that person. Yep.
Hurt me, bro.
Yeah.
It's hurtful.
In short, there were many defenders of slavery in the West, even in the 19th century. And outside the West, slavery was too widely accepted to require defense. No other nation ended slavery in the same way as the United States did, and few ended it after so short a struggle, as history is measured. How and why did slavery end in most of the world? There were two major processes. Over the centuries, as more and more territories around the world consolidated into nation-states with their own armies and navies, raiding those territories to capture and enslave the people who lived within them became more hazardous in itself, and also risked military retaliation against the countries from which the raiders came. Thus, more and more peoples became off-limits to slave raiders over time. Put differently, the areas which remained subject to slave raiding over the centuries were primarily those where the people lived in smaller or weaker societies. Such societies continued to exist where it was difficult, for geographic or other reasons, to consolidate large areas under one government. This was true of the Balkans, the backwaters of Asia, and much of sub-Saharan Africa. By the early modern era, sub-Saharan Africa, with its numerous and severe geographic handicaps, was one of the last remaining areas from which vast numbers of people could be enslaved.
Man, it was really a real insightful video.
Yeah, definitely an eye-opener. An eye-opener for real. Yeah, man, one of the main points that just keep getting me now, as I've been taught, as I grew up, that white people always slave black people. Now I'm saying that black people
Slave their own people.
tribes for the weaker, you know, and stuff like that. And it's so crazy how everything just trickled down to society today, bro. How people sell their souls and do this, do that. Just for now, it's just more so. It's not even about. It's not even about slavery. It's really about money.
Exactly. Now you thinking.
You feel me? It's
What
really
does
about
money
money.
bring? What does money bring?
Feel me?
Money brings power, and money brings control. And you know, they could care less about the money, as long as they got that power and control. You know what I'm saying? But just so have it, money brings that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's crazy.
Man, anything you gotta say before we get out of here?
Thank y'all for stopping by.
That's
Y'all
a
like my
fact.
pink hoodie?
I'm Nick Dunson.
I'm Mookie Dunson.
And we out, baby. One. Yup.